Having kids and bringing them up is one of the best things in the world. But what if something terrible happens, like one of your kids taking his sibling's life?
The Umoja primary school pupil was killed.
It's hard to imagine, but this woman went through this scary situation. Yes, heard that right. After she divorced her husband, she was left with her 3 children, but the firstborn did something hard to believe. He took the life of not one, but his 2 brothers, yet he was only 17 years of age. This led him to prison, and his mother ended up like someone who never had children. You may wonder why such a young child would even think of eliminating his siblings. Was he bewitched? Or someone was forcing him to do this terrible thing? This story will give you all the answers.
Kwa majina naitwa Jane Muthoni, Waloi.
My name is Jane Muthoni. I was born and grew up in Nyari County. I have 7 siblings, and I'm the 7th child. My dad died when I was little, so my mom had to raise us all by herself. I went to primary school, but I had to stop in the 8th grade because of life challenges. After leaving school, I met and married my husband. God blessed us with 3 kids, Joseph, Naphtali, and Peter. Sadly, Naphtali and Peter passed away later on.
They were happy because they tried to get along well and live peacefully, even though they didn't have much. This helped them build their family and start a small business, making their life happy. But then, her father-in-law passed away. Even though it wasn't Jane's fault, it affected her so much as it was because, after that, her husband changed a lot. He became a different person and started behaving badly.
After that, my husband began to change. He started cheating on me with other women. Things got worse when he stopped helping me and stopped coming home. That's when I decided to divorce him because I couldn't take it anymore. We split up and I moved far away from him. Life became very hard because I was stressed and scared in a new place. But I was looking for peace. I talked to my kids about living with me, but the oldest said to take the younger ones and let him stay in Nairobi to finish school.
Jane chose to move with her 2 younger children. However, it looks like her oldest child didn't really plan to study. Instead, after they moved, Jane heard that this older child began to behave badly.
People started calling me to tell me about the bad things my oldest child, who stayed in Nairobi, was doing. I decided to visit him and talk about it. I asked him to come and live with me, and he agreed. We had to find him a new school. He needed to do an interview there, and he did really well. The teachers liked him a lot because he was smart. He kept studying while living with his brothers and me. I didn't hear any more bad things about him. Then, one day when I was at work, someone called me. They said I needed to come home quickly because something bad had happened. When I got home, I was told my son Naphtali had ended his life. I was shocked and very sad. I thought about getting an autopsy, but people said it was better to use the money for his funeral instead. I listened to them and we planned the funeral, but I felt very sad. Inside, I felt that Naphtali didn't take his own life. I thought someone else had done something to him.
It is very common for every mother to hear many different thoughts and feelings inside her when something bad happens to their children, and this mother felt that way too, but she couldn't act on these because it was too late. Joseph, the oldest child who was behind his brother's death, didn't show his feelings. He kept things to himself so his mom couldn't tell what he was thinking. But the question is, how did they find out that he was responsible as they didn't do an autopsy or investigate further?
Sometime later, I asked my son to help with chores and he got very upset. We argued and then he did something unexpected. He left the house and didn't come home to sleep. The next day, when he came back, I asked him where he had been. He didn't answer me. I told him, "I'm your mother and you should respect me." Thinking about my child's recent funeral and seeing my oldest son's disrespectful behavior really hurt me. He wouldn't show me any respect. Then he left again, and this time I noticed he took his younger brother, Peter, with him. Remember, I was left with 2 children at that time. I never thought I should keep them from being together because I never imagined that their older brother could be so cruel.
A parent shouldn't stop children from spending time together, so she allowed them to leave. She thought they were just going out to play, or for some other normal reason. She didn't imagine that Joseph would harm his brother. However, hours later, she saw Joseph come back alone without his younger brother.
I asked him where he left his brother. He said they split up in Nyabiru, a nearby town. My heart dropped as we started looking for my child, but it got dark and we couldn't find him. I kept asking his older brother, but he said he didn't know where he was. I couldn't sleep that night because it hadn't been long since we lost one of them. We went to the police that night and they told me to come back in the morning with a picture of my missing child and more details. The next morning, I went to the police, gave them the photo, and told them Joseph was the last to see him. They asked Joseph where he left his brother, but he said he didn't know. The police said they would start looking for him. We went home, but I kept looking everywhere for my child, and so did Joseph, but we couldn't find him. Joseph seemed worried. I asked him again if he knew anything, but he said he didn't.
The mother couldn't sleep. It's normal for any mother to feel upset and worried if she doesn't know if her child is safe or not. Joseph acted very calm and said he didn't know where his brother was. His mother knew it was time to go back to the police since there were no answers and time was passing.
I went back to the police and told them I had reported my missing child but hadn't received any help. Then, a higher-ranking police officer came and asked me how old the missing child was and who was with him. I answered his questions. He then told me to stop searching and to come back with my older child. I went home and made some food because I hadn't eaten for days due to worry. Later, Joseph came home. Remembering the police's advice not to let him know that I had a plan, I acted normally. I told him the younger child was still missing despite my efforts to find him. Joseph didn't seem to care much. After he ate, I told him we needed to go back to the police because we couldn't find Peter. He said that was no problem.
Because he acted without thinking and was careless, he didn't realize that he was under investigation and that his actions would be discovered. They went to the police together. The mother thought it was a regular investigation that would help find her child, but it was also going to reveal that one of her own children was responsible for something very bad.
We got to the police station and the officer asked Joseph his name. He answered. Then the officer asked where his brother Peter was, and Joseph started to stutter and seemed scared. He agreed to take them to where his younger brother was. I watched, feeling like I was in a movie. It took a long time for them to come back. It was already afternoon, and then my phone rang. They said they had found him, and I felt a bit better. They said I should come to where they found my child. One policeman seemed to be trying to make me feel better, which worried me, but all I could think about was seeing my child. When we got to the forest, there were many people and cars, and I felt very bad. I realized something terrible had happened. Then I understood that Joseph had done something awful to his brother. I was overwhelmed by sadness and disbelief, especially because I had always thought of Joseph as someone who would take care of things if I couldn't.
This is very difficult for anyone to grasp. The mother was waiting to see her missing child. When she finally saw him, he was not alive, and it was all done by his older brother. The most shocking part was finding out that Naftali, the first child, did not take his own life either. It was also done by the older brother.
After he admitted he was responsible, we started to think he might also have been involved in Naftali's death. The police kept asking him questions, and he admitted he was responsible for Naftali's death too. When they asked why he did it, he said he felt a force making him want to do it. I listened to everything, shocked and unable to believe it, but I had no choice but to accept what was happening. So, we left and handed him over to the police to deal with the situation.
After everything came out, Joseph was sent to jail for what he did, but his mother said that the process wasn't right because she is always scared for her own safety when this child gets out of jail.
I feel very uneasy because if he could hurt his brothers, he might hurt me too. I say this because some people visited him in prison and said that he takes me as his only enemy left. He was only given a 5-year sentence, and I don't understand why the court decided that. Now, I'm really worried and scared all the time. I'm not sure if he will come out as a better person or even more dangerous, but I'm praying that God protects me. Lastly, I want to tell all parents to take good care of their children and teach them to love one another. My husband and I couldn't give our children the best upbringing because we were apart, and that might be why our son turned out this way. I think if I had stayed with my child, he wouldn't have been a bad person like that.
This story is a heartbreaking reminder of the unexpected challenges families can face. Let us all strive to create a safer and more loving environment for our families, ensuring that such tragedies are prevented. Thanks for watching. I am Simon Greenwood, and this is Afrimax English. Please remember to subscribe.